Blade Runner is a movie about personhood.
Alright, I'm gonna ask you a series of questions. Just relax and answer them as simply as you can. You're reading a magazine, you come across a full-page nude photo of a girl.
Is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?
She's a replicant, isn't she?
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Did you ever take that test yourself?
Cowboy Bebop initially comes across as just a fun and well-executed space western, but as it goes on, it becomes clear that the show is about the futility of repressing your past. It tells stories of each character struggling to move on from their background and eventually trying to go back and gain a sense of closure.
I want to go back one last time. If I can't do that, then at least I'll be on my way.
Now what the hell does this have to do with Ranma 1/2?
Okay, now I'm confused.
Ranma 1/2 is not a serious piece of media. Usually. While they consist of a lot of different genres mashed together, the manga and anime series are both largely comedies centered on a cast of dysfunctional characters struggling to get through their very strange lives.
Would somebody please tell me why all this weird stuff always happens to me?
Ranma Saotome comes from a family of martial artists. As a child, he's taken away from his mother to train under his father Genma, and as such, he's always on the move, not really settling down anywhere.
I was undeniable, undefeated champion!
Social services would love those slides.
At one point, they go to a cursed training ground in China. Why a cursed one? Genma can't read Chinese. Of course, they get cursed when landing in the bodies of water below, with Genma turning into a panda and Ranma turning into a girl. They revert back when splashed with hot water, but will return to their cursed forms when making contact with cold water.
I could keep doing this for hours.
Shortly after this, they return to Japan to meet with Son Tendo, a close friend of Genma's. There, Ranma will be engaged to one of Son's daughters to secure the future of their school.
What would I be? Because you hate boys, don't you?
Well, I guess you're in luck, Akane. Ranma's half girl.
Ranma and Akane don't hit it off particularly well. Fiercely independent, they resent their arranged marriage, but start to secretly develop feelings for each other, not wanting to admit that to each other or themselves. They are thrust into crazy situations due to past mistakes, unresolved character flaws, Genma being an asshole.
You sold me for one crummy little stinking fish, huh?
He also threw in the rice and 2 pickles.
Or just knowing weird and domineering people.
There is a shark in the pool.
There is some degree of serialization in both the anime and manga, but this isn't some grand quest of making the trek back to China or something along those lines. It's more about trying to live with it, like, welp, this is life apparently. As such, there are arcs and storylines, but things are generally more episodic than a lot of anime. And I honestly think that works better for what this series is going for. Right off the bat, the strengths of the series becomes clear, chief among them being the characterization. Our leads don't feel like one-dimensional caricatures. Their personalities feel genuinely fleshed out. Not only do we get to see them in multiple lights, but the more flexible approach really brings out a lot in them. For example, sometimes Ranma is the straight man reacting to the insanity around him. Other times, he's the problem.
Cured! Cured, I tell ya! I'm 100% back to normal! Cured! Good as new! Out of my way, tree! Buddha-man!
And yet, no matter what, it comes across as perfectly in character. It also helps that there is some degree of ambiguity with them, as part of the series' very premise is about these characters putting on a front. Ranma and Akane in particular are not very honest about their emotions. The animation in the anime is also very expressive, which also really helps the English dub as the actors actually have something to work with. That leads me to something else. Ranma 1/2 is genuinely really funny.
That guy turned into a girl.
And this guy turned into a pig.
Just put more water.
Yeah, I'm gonna dip a few times.
However, it is also able to shift to more serious or sentimental moments really seamlessly. The characters work really easily in more dramatic settings, and the foundation being laid allows for more tonal versatility. I've been trying to stick to the elements that both the anime and manga share, but there are some noteworthy differences, the most crucial of which being that the manga actually got to finish. The anime was cancelled well before the manga ended, and as such there's a lot of storylines from the manga that were never adapted. While both have a lot of the same traits and goals, they do have different tones and pacing. The manga is far more fast-paced and zany, whereas the anime tries to balance things out more. The anime tries to establish a baseline reality, give more time for the characters to breathe, and demonstrate how their dynamics are evolving and connect plot details. Season 1 especially is bizarrely well directed. There's effective use of visual storytelling, and it does a really good job establishing the tone. It's not Citizen Kane, but it does remember what medium it's working with. Comedies are often considered lesser art in comparison to other genres, but this need not be the case. For starters, sometimes in media, the substance is the execution. Hell, comedy doesn't just have to be relief or to distract. You can use it to communicate information. It can establish or explore character. It can move the plot forward, or even express a viewpoint.
Because of the epidemic, I have canceled my vacation to the Bahamas. I shall not leave the city. Hey, you!
She's forgotten what it's like to live on the outside, to not be in prison.
But what about Ranma 1/2? Surely this isn't the case here, right? Well, in order to look at this, let's look at the sources of tension in the text and see where we go from there. Many of the external dilemmas imposed on our leads come from their parents, educators, and elders. Ranma is characterized as a very rebellious character who doesn't like other people controlling him.
How dare you talk back to your father like that? You should be ashamed. Oh, and I see this is the way you show respect to your very own father.
You've got to earn respect.
He has reason to feel this way too. His father is a selfish asshole who has no sense of responsibility. The head of his martial arts school is a lecherous monster. His principal is... this.
Look, the palm tree straight from the island.
You get the idea. These peers often attempt to assume control over him for their own gain. As such, not only has Ranma become skeptical of authority, but he holds his individuality in high esteem. Ranma is a very individualistic person, and this is both a strength and a character flaw, but we'll come back to this later. In general, Ranma is thrust into circumstance by people who don't care about him as much as they do getting what they want. Is he constantly on bad terms with them? No, he's often at odds with his father, but they can get along. He has some respect for Son and Cologne, but mostly because they are more empathetic than their peers and will help others in situations where it doesn't directly benefit them. However, there is always that underlying condition to that relationship, so they're not totally healthy.
Ranma will marry my Akane, and then the two will carry on the Anything Goes School of Martial Arts.
3,000 years of Chinese Amazon history are on the line here. You'll just have to break the engagement.
So it looks like we found our messaging, right? People can abuse the respect your elders sentiment to create toxic relationships and dynamics, which breeds resentment amongst the generations under them. But there's more than that. This theme of toxic dynamics rooted in people using each other for their own selfish needs, it applies to more than just the elders. The younger characters exhibit it too. They might not be able to assert the same degree of control as their older peers, but they do the same thing. Also, our leads have internal issues as well, which catalyze some of the plot lines. We're on the right track. Themes are presenting themselves, but clearly there's more going on here. Something broader. Let's go back to the base premise of the series and look at the sources of conflict within. Ranma and Akane are placed into an arranged marriage by their parents to uphold tradition. We've covered the parental dynamics. Oh yeah, Ranma turns into a girl. Yeah, let's talk about that.
If you jump in there, you're gonna turn into a girl.
Oh, right, I forgot.
Now, you're probably thinking that I'm going to go on about the whole show being a trans allegory. Not necessarily. That said, while I don't think the series was intentionally trying to depict or represent trans people, there are things that definitely resonate when viewed from a trans perspective. The frustration that comes from living in a world that was not equipped to handle you.
I show up wearing the girls' bathing suit so no one gets freaked out, but then they do anyway.
When you jump in as a guy and climb out as a girl, people are going to get upset.
Frustration of being repeatedly misgendered.
Wow, lady, you're great! Call me Mr. Lady, I really want one! Hey, I'm a mister!
Lonco, you'll make a wonderful wife.
Wonderful wife. Make a good wife, she says.
However, at more of a base foundational level, Ranma is a character who was raised to be masculine, so him turning into a girl is meant more as a foil to that. It's something that the character isn't equipped to handle, so that's exactly what he's going to go through. He cares a lot about his self-image and how others perceive him. He puts on a front that he's more tough and stereotypically manly than he actually is.
There you go again, putting on that stupid Mr. Cool act like it really impresses anyone.
Yet there are plenty of times where he will switch to his girl form of his own accord. Often this is for Bugs Bunny-style disguise shenanigans, but that's not universally the case. Sometimes he does this to avoid gender expectations of being a man.
Stand up! Are you a guy or aren't you?
I'm a girl right now, okay? Doing this as a guy, I'd look dumb.
I've got some news for you, Ranma. You look pretty dumb either way. Don't tell me you've never had ice cream.
Guys would never eat this kind. It'd be embarrassing.
And you're not embarrassed now?
Hey, I'm a girl now. It don't count.
It's interesting that he does this because there are plenty of times where he seems very beholden to those expectations, to the point where he has an existential crisis if he loses a match. This reveals what is probably his greatest fear. Well, aside from cats, being a disappointment.
Ranma, it's all your fault for letting Ryoga beat you. Now all my dreams are completely shattered.
Without my strength, what else is left?
Do you think Father will be too disappointed in me?
Well, I guess she knows. I hope she's not too disappointed.
Given that pressure, yeah, him wanting to take a break from that every now and then makes a lot of sense. Though there are plenty of times where beyond that, he seems pretty damn comfortable as a girl.
Sorry, Akane, but when I get a craving, there's no sense even trying to control it. One of the hazards of being a girl, I guess. Don't you have any pride as a boy? You just turned into a girl so you can eat a chocolate sundae! Aren't you embarrassed?
I don't even think they want to turn back to normal.
What? No! You can't stay like this forever!
I'm getting tired of changing back to a guy.
Why don't you just stay as is?
Huh? You mean... That's right! Maybe I'll just stay this way!
Yet, if you were to present him with a miracle cure to the curse or ask him what he identifies as, he would defensively assert his manhood and his goal to rid himself of his girl form. Hell, the anime makes the point that he hasn't really thought that deeply about that goal.
You're unbelievable! You still have no idea how this change is going to affect your life at all!
He also doesn't seem to be in any rush to go back to China and get it undone. And it's made clear rather early on in the series that he does have the ability to go back. It's just inconvenient.
I'm going to a drugstore in China to buy some of that memory-restoring shampoo. Question is, how am I going to get to China without any money? Guess I'm going to have to get there same as last time.
Putting his stringent expectations aside, it doesn't seem like being a girl in of itself bothers him that much. What seems to bother him more is the idea of not being able to change back, and the lack of control he often has of that transformation.
Looks like rain, huh?
And we got no umbrella. Man, this change when wet thing sucks.
Both in the manga and in the anime, the curse is never cured. Does this automatically mean he's actually a girl? No, but it does raise questions about how honest he's being about his emotions here, and the more explicit case of his feelings for Akane does cast some doubts. Then we get to the episode Am I Pretty? Ranma's declaration of womanhood. Ranma and Genma are training, and after accidentally angering Akane, Ranma hits his head on the rocks in the koi pond. This knocks him out. After he comes to, we find that he's of sound mind and still has all of his memories, but he's acting noticeably different. In fact, she identifies as a girl now. This throws the dynamics in the rest of the house completely out of whack. Of course, she hits her head again at the end of the episode and the status quo is restored. However, what just happened here? We don't know just how reflective of Ranma's character it all is, but it does raise questions. Now, this could be interesting enough on its own, showing how conditional everything in the Tendo house is, given the various reactions the other characters have. However, that's not the big bombshell here.
Aren't you the heir to the Sao Tome School of Anything Goes martial arts?
I wish I could quit. Do you think Father will be too disappointed in me?
At this rate, you'll never be able to take over the Sao Tome School after me!
Oh, who cares? I never wanted any part of it!
This makes a really good point about Ranma's character. Despite defining himself as a rebel, he is exactly who his father molded him to be.
Oh, sure, I remember how hard we trained together as I groomed you to take over the Sao Tome School.
This episode makes the case that Ranma never had much agency over who he is, and may not even know himself that well. His sense of self is defined by what others want out of him. Ironically, while Ranma's depiction here is that of a sweet, demure, and polite girl, it's also the most genuinely rebellious he has ever been. However, after spending all this time knowing Ranma lived his early life traveling and training with his dad, you're probably left thinking, what would have Ranma's life been like if his mom continued to be part of his life? This series would answer this, but the answer might not be easy to hear.
Let me tell you about your mother. She's a woman that holds honor and loyalty in high esteem.
Nodoka didn't want Ranma to leave, so in order to leave, Genma convinces her by vowing that he will raise Ranma to be a true man among men, and should he fail to do so, both him and Ranma will commit ritual seppuku. This results in an emotional tug-of-war within Ranma. On one hand, Nodoka is very kind, but also sad, longing to see him again. Little does she know that her son is right in front of her. On the other hand, if Ranma fails to live up to Genma's promise, as hard as it will be to carry it out, she will make sure her husband and son carry through with it. Ranma wants to come clean and be with his mom, but he also doesn't want to die.
Why, oh why aren't you the manly son I've dreamed of having?
In the manga, this is the start of a new recurring plot thread. In the anime, this is where the show stops. On one hand, functionally, this doesn't work as an ending. It doesn't wrap up dilemmas, it creates new ones. However, these last 2 episodes are so damn good that nobody cares. These are easily some of the best episodes of the whole show, and it ends on such an emotional note, it ends up being a beautiful swan song. Given how the show can be kind of hit or miss sometimes, for it to go off on such a high point feels perfect, even if it leaves more to be answered. Thankfully, we have the manga for that. Eventually, Ranma gets sick of running and decides that he's willing to die if it means getting closure with his mom. She sees that this strange girl is actually her son. Given Ranma's behavior, she sees him as a man regardless of his body. On one hand, this is a comforting moment that feels really rewarding and cathartic. However, in a later story, she catches Ranma dressed up as her, and the next panel shows Ranma running away. It's played for laughs, but once again we see this conditionality to Ranma's relationships. The manga's final chapters take place back at the cursed training grounds at Jusenkyo, and at the end we see that instead of Ranma jumping into the spring that will rid him of his girl form, he's reconciling with it, perhaps confessing to himself that maybe their girl side is a part of them. Of course, we see on the next page that the springs are flooded and overlapping, so either Ranma is just comforting himself, which is how Akane sees it, or he's using his subsequent frustration as a front to hide back behind after revealing more than he was ready for. Hell, it might be a combination of the two. Akane is interesting. In many ways, she is similar to Ranma. She too comes from a family of martial artists, values her independence, and is stubborn. These similarities often cause the two to butt heads. Where they differ is that Akane is forced to confront her issues and the less healthy aspects of her upbringing. When we first meet her, she has a vehement dislike of boys. It's not hard to see why either, as upperclassman Tatewaki Kuno challenged the entire male body of the school to defeat her in combat if they wanted to date her. So every day, in order to get to her classes, she has to fight through a horde of desperate guys. I honestly really like how this is established. We see it through Ranma's perspective, who has no clue what's going on at first.
She knows what she's doing. This happens every morning.
And his following expressions say a lot as we are shown that he's starting to understand and respect her. For the next several episodes, though, we see a lot of unhealthy tendencies in Akane. She has an unrequited crush on the neighborhood doctor and doesn't want to let that go. On some level, while Ranma holds more masculine expectations of himself, Akane holds herself to more feminine expectations.
Sometimes I feel like I've got a boy for a sister.
Romeo should be Akane. She's the best one.
I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Tofu.
Huh? He's no problem.
She looks just like a boy.
If you don't start acting more like a girl, Dr. Tofu won't like you anymore.
Huh?
Maybe if I grow my hair as long as Kasumi, he'll like me again.
She then starts to grow her hair out to put on more of a feminine appearance, only after years of waiting for it to grow, it's accidentally cut in a battle between Ranma and his rival Ryoga. She gets it evened out and goes to tend to another injury she got the same day.
You know, short hair looks very good on you, Akane.
I knew it.
This allows her to start unpacking the years of hurt these expectations caused her.
I think I'm finally over him.
Her bias in boys is also questioned as she sees the sensitivity and kindness in people like Ryoga, as well as understanding Ranma more as the series progresses. It's really rewarding in the later seasons to watch these two actually start to get along more, develop better chemistry, and the more romantic moments between them feel genuinely touching. If it isn't clear by now, I think this is something that the anime does better than the manga. Of course, she's not Ranma's only fiancé, with Shampoo being an accident grounded in the customs of her village, and Ukyo being a consequence of a deal Genma made with her father.
I hate to tell you this, but the boy's already got himself a fiancée.
Now that's a darn shame, because here's me ready to throw in my okonomiyaki card as her dowry, too.
Sold!
Shampoo's infatuation with Ranma is, while potent, ultimately unhealthy and superficial. Ukyo is more grounded, laid back, and has passions outside of just wanting Ranma. However, both Ukyo and Shampoo will fight over him a lot and treat him as something to be won. They're willing to take advantage of Ranma's weaknesses if it means being the one to claim him, where Akane will be the one who actually thinks about Ranma's well-being.
What about how Ranma feels?
Where Akane differs from the others is that while she and Ranma may have more friction, at the end of the day they see each other as people, not as an item of conquest. Akane is not a perfect person, and she still has her biases, but unlike most of the cast, she is more willing to look inward, question herself, and change. So many of the issues these characters have to face stem from pride, fear, and an inability to look inward. Our brains are designed to protect us and are wired for survival rather than logic. So if we develop a sense of self, it's very human to cling to it. However, as this series demonstrates with so much of its cast, that can be disastrously unhealthy. Yeah, this is a wacky screwball comedy, but the more you look at it, the more you see overarching destructive behavior patterns, and through that, it actually does have a lot to say. It's also kind of startling how much, when looking past the comedy and reading into subtext, Ranma 1/2 is really messed up. It's not even that it tries to make all of this funny, it's that it's really damn good at it. It's easy to become complacent with these character dynamics and norms, and as such, it's hard to blame the characters for doing the same. But man, a therapist would have a field day with this cast. Unlike me, the most sane person around shut up. In retrospect, it's kind of fitting that the anime ended with more problems being introduced rather than resolving anything, because this show isn't about how problems get solved. It's about what gets in the way of that happening.